At over 2.2 trillion US dollars, Canada ranks as the 8th richest country on the planet in terms of its economy size. Now, ranking in the top 10 for your GDP is, well, super impressive. But what's even more impressive is Canada's relatively low population compared to other countries of similar wealth. At the time of making this video, Canada's population is around 38 million, making it the 37th most populated country in the world. This means that Canadians represent just 0.5% of all humans on Earth. So if we grab Canada's 2.2 trillion GDP and divide it by its 38 million population, we get a GDP per capita of around $58,000 US, making Canadians around the 14th richest people on the planet. So how exactly has this came to be? How is a country with such a low population so wealthy? What makes their economy so strong? So let's start off with the most obvious one, its sheer size and the amount of resources within it. Canada ranks as the country with the 4th most abundance of natural resources on the planet, worth an estimated 33 trillion US dollars. Included in this is its almighty oil deposits, ranking only behind Venezuela and Saudi Arabia. As Canada is so darn big, and in fact the world's 2nd largest country, it is home to an astronomical amount of timber, freshwater, and other precious minerals and metals. Just like its oil deposits, Canada ranks 3rd in the world for the most forest, only behind Brazil, which of course has the Amazon, and Russia, which is by far the world's largest country. For renewable sources of fresh water, Canada ranks 4th, only behind the US, Russia, and Brazil. One thing that Canada dominates the rest of the world in is the amount of lakes it has. Now this statistic is absolutely mind-boggling, so let's put it into perspective first. So the USA is also a pretty big country, right? It's comparable to Canada in terms of its land size. It has just over 100,000 lakes. Russia, which is by far the world's largest country, has around 200,000. Canada, well, wipes the floor with the rest of the world in fact, with an estimated unbelievable 879,000 lakes in total. Russia contains less than a quarter of the number of lakes than Canada does. Canada actually has more lakes than the rest of the world combined. The reason is due to the fact that the vast majority of Canada was situated under a large ice sheet during the last ice age. Both glacial erosion and the vast weight of the ice sheet itself sculpted the landscape, leaving behind natural indentations when they retreated. These have since filled with water. When it comes to mining, Canada is king. It ranks in the top 10 as being the top producer of many metals, including the likes of copper, gold, and platinum. Oh, and ranking 1st for potash. Something I've never personally heard of, but well, Canada seems to be digging up a decent chunk of it. After doing a bit of research, as I'm not a miner or a farmer, it turns out that it is used in fertilizers to support plant growth and increase yields. Canada has a huge and booming services sector, with over 70% of its population being involved in this field. This is the 12th highest in the world. Just 1.6% are involved in agriculture and the other 28% or so in industry. Although not the highest in the world, its employment rate is relatively high at around 75%, which ranks them in the top 15 in the world. This high level of employment, especially within the services industry, usually creates a pretty strong and healthy economy. Although Canada as a whole doesn't see the highest average relative property prices in the world, its main cities do. At over $1 million, cities like Toronto and Vancouver see some of the highest property prices anywhere on Earth. Canada's main cities are very desirable to live in, and real estate is quite frankly booming there. Now, if any of our viewers are in fact Canadian, let us know what your thoughts are on these insane prices, what is happening, and what can be done to help the average Canadian out. My guess is that very wealthy individuals who aren't even Canadian are buying up all the luxury property, just like what we see in cities like London and Sydney. The next reason why Canada is, well, so rich is that it borders the United States, the country with the largest economy on the planet. If we take a look at a map of the USA and see each state's biggest trading partner, we can see that a decent chunk of them are in fact Canada. 76% and 52% of its exports and imports actually come from the US. The US is obviously a monster when it comes to economy size and has a very large energy and resource dependent population, which in turn makes great business and revenue for the Canadians. Ocean access. Alongside Russia, Canada borders 3 different oceans: the Pacific to its west, the Atlantic to its east, and the Arctic to its north. This gives it incredible access to the world's oceans and trade routes, which is especially important when you are exporting so many resources. Wars, or lack of them. Although Canada is involved with wars around the world, it hasn't seen the destruction that much of Europe saw during the 20th century with World War I and World War II. Effectively meaning they haven't had to rebuild their cities and infrastructure unlike, say, Japan, England, or Germany. Most educated. Canadian in terms of education are very smart people. The Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development compares the percentage of each country's residents aged between 25 and 64 who have completed some form of tertiary education. Based on the OECD's data, Canada is the most educated country globally, with over 56% of adults meeting the criteria. Japan has the second highest at around 51%, followed by Israel with around 51% as well. However, it is worth noting that this list compared only the 43 countries that are members or partners of the OECD, leaving out roughly 150 countries. So overall, Canada is one of the world's richest nations, with a highly sophisticated economy and a top-tier standard of living. Though of course, just like any other country, life in Canada isn't perfect. Most Canadians nevertheless hold reasonably well-paying jobs and access to ample comforts that citizens in many other countries would absolutely dream of. So what is your thoughts on Canada? Perhaps you've travelled there, studied there, or perhaps you even live there. What is life like in Canada in the 21st century? Let us know below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, it is 100% free and you can always unsubscribe at the click of a button. So thanks again for watching and we will see you very soon in our next video.